The crisis in the Middle East is being discussed at a major security conference in Halifax this weekend. That's where we find our chief political correspondent, Tom Clark. Tom, what's being said about the conflict between Hamas and Israel?
Well, Robin, there are security experts from about 50 different countries around the world here at this conference, and so it has been a topic of conversation, as you can imagine. One of the major concerns is, could this go wider than just a dispute between Israel and Hamas in Gaza? Could other Arab nations get involved? There was one unique perspective on all of this, though. Retired Israeli General Shlomo Brom says, and he's a man who's got still very deep connections into the Israeli government and into the Israeli military. He said in an interview on the West Block that he's been told that all major military objectives have now been reached, and that was to take out the largest of the guns at the disposal of Hamas. Take a listen to what he said.
Well, my assessment is that the military objective were achieved. But you cannot be certain about that until the Hamas accepts ceasefire that will not be according to his terms, but according to the Israeli terms.
And it's precisely to get that ceasefire with Hamas on Israeli terms that he says is the reason why those troops are massed on the border, not so much for an actual ground invasion, but the threat of an invasion, specifically to get that ceasefire.
Tom, Israel must weigh international opinion, though, when it comes to a ground invasion. What's being said about that?
Well, everybody recognizes that it's a real dilemma for Israel because a few years ago when they went into Lebanon, they may have scored a military victory, but they lost in the court of public opinion, and Israel is very keenly aware of that. But here's the dilemma. Do you stay out, in other words, don't go into Gaza while the rockets continue to rain down on you, or do you go in and risk losing public support? It's something I talked to Senator John McCain about earlier in this conference. Take a listen.
The last couple of times there's been incursions by the Israelis, either Gaza or, in one case, Lebanon, hadn't turned out well. So I would think that the Israelis are rather reluctant, but they can't just sit there and watch incoming rockets.
There is an expectation that a solution could be perhaps days, but more like just weeks away. But there's a big caution from everybody here. This is the Middle East. Anything can happen at any time. Robin, back to you.
All right, thanks very much. Tom Clark reporting tonight.